Welcome to Crafty Carol's Christmas Countdown, week 6. It's really, I can't believe where time's going. We're halfway, I can't believe it. Anyway, today I wanted to do a slightly more traditional card. I tend to do quite cute little things, and we're back to Christmas things this week after doing our notelets and our boxes for those, our little folders for those in the last 2 weeks. So this week I'm using the Great Tidings stamp set. This is the card I've made. So hopefully you can see it there. Don't know how much the sparkle shows. Because it's very dull here. I should have turned the light on actually. But the little sentiment is stamped directly and embossed with gold embossing powder, as is the gold star. Doesn't show up terribly well in this light. But I've also got quite a lot of shimmery, oh golly, can't think what the stuff's called. Wink of Stella, that's the stuff. All over the kings. But it doesn't show on the video. It's very difficult to show Wink of Stella glinting on the video. Never mind. But this is the card, and it looks really quite ornate, but really it's not. It's very simple. Obviously do the envelopes as well, and the inside of the card. Never forget the inside of the card. Oh, get it the right way up. I've just stamped that plainly. You could have another layer on there if you wanted. I've left it as a layer because I will be posting that, and I wanted to keep the weight down and the size down a little bit. So it's using this lovely Great Tidings set, which has the 3 wise men and sort of leafy things and star and some nice sentiments in a beautiful font, and the gifts, little pile of gifts there, which is really good for inside the card and on the envelope, which was where I've used it. And it comes with a matching set of dies. And when you look at the card I've made, you'll see which die I've used. So I've used, just cut out of the front layer, I've used that die, and it just cuts out that shape beautifully, I have to say, unbelievably well. So without further ado, let me talk about how I made it and what you need for it. So for this card, you need a basic, get my supplies ready here. So we want a basic white card blank, which is the normal size of 14.7 by 10.5, so 21 all the way across, scored in the middle at 10.5. I've already stamped the inside of this one, so we're ready. So you need that piece. Then you need a navy blue piece for the front, and I've cut that just very, very slightly smaller. So this is actually 14.6 by 10.4, and that's just because when you fold the base card, it does take a little fraction off the size. So I've just made it a fraction smaller. You could make it the same size if you want. Then you get a little bit of the blue sticking out just slightly here, so up to you, but that's the size I find works. So to make the front, all I did was get the die. I'm not going to do it now, I've got to get one ready, but get the die and place it roughly where you want it to go. So I placed it roughly about 1/3 of the way up, leaving space in the top corner where I can then stamp and emboss the star, and space at the bottom for a sentiment. So you run that through your die cutting machine, and by the magic of Blue Peter, I have to call it Blue Peter, but I always think of, I'm that old, I think of Valerie Singleton, because that was my era of Blue Peter. But here's one I made earlier. So you don't want to see me running things through die cutting machines. You know what that looks like. So that is it cut out, and it will stick on the front here, but not flat. I raised it up. If you perhaps couldn't see on this, but I've actually raised it up using some strips. You can perhaps just see on that it's slightly raised up. So that's my edge bit. Then I want my kings for the middle. So this bit you cut out, by the way, that would make a card itself, or I have also used it to cut out, where are my shapes? There we go. I cut out a few of these, this die is in the set as well, just a sort of Bethlehem background, and I actually stuck it behind my kings on this one. I'll show you how I did that in a minute. But I've already stamped and cut the kings, so you want scraps of card that are big enough for you to actually stamp. I've got some bits here, stamp on. And how I made sure that my kings were going to show through the aperture is that the bit that cuts out of the middle, I placed that. So if I was doing it on this one, I'll show you how to do it. I was just placing it down because I want some above, because I don't want the edge to show through the lacy bit of the cutout. So I want a little space above, and then I grab a pencil and I just mark roughly where that is just by drawing around it, keeping it still with my fingers, draw all the way around it, and that gives me the shape in which I can then stamp my kings. So I know they're going to show through the aperture. And obviously I can rub that out when I stick it together, as I'll show you in a minute. So I'm not going to stamp and colour the kings because, quite frankly, that's boring watching people do that. I shall make this one later. But I have already prepared a piece here. And as I say, the size of that scrap piece doesn't matter. It just needs to go fully behind this window. So as you can see, I've stamped those and coloured them, and they're right in the middle of the window there, which is brilliant. So now all I need to do is find my rubber and rub out the lines here that I drew in pencil, because I don't want any of those to show through, and I know they won't show through if I rub them out. So I always rub those out first. Oop, that wasn't very good. Don't bend your card as you do that. There we go. So I want to now know where I need to place that. So if I place this piece on first, not stuck down obviously, and then I can slide this one behind and get it so that it's just in the right position, so that when that is sitting on top, so make sure it's all nice and square, and that one's nice and square too. Just going to move that corner down a bit. There we go. There, so that's how I want it sitting on the card. So now I can take the top piece off, stick that down carefully, and all I will do, I'll just let it move a bit. As you can see, I should have got that straight. So I can now mark the top and the bottom of where it's going to stick. And now I know where to stick this. So I can stick this down flat, even though I've bent it slightly. That wasn't good, but hopefully it'll stick. I'll put plenty of glue on there and it'll stick out. So I'll now stick this on. There we go, and all I need to do now is make sure that I line that up with my marks on the card, and I don't have to worry about rubbing those out because they won't be seen anyway. So I've smoothed out that little crease, so that's fine. So now when I stick this on the top, those are in just the right place. I'm really pleased about that. What I didn't show you was how to put the little house on. That was silly, I've stuck it down now. So probably I won't use my little Bethlehem scene behind. We don't have to, or I could have it right at the top here, possibly, if I trim a bit off, don't know, might not bother. But I've got my third king that I'm going to stick on dimensionals and put in there. But before we do that, let us prepare this, and I will tell you how I actually did this. So on here, this one's stuck on top on dimensionals. So for these kings here, all I did is used a craft knife to cut around the edge so I could tuck the edge of this die cut in behind that king. So he's stamped flat on this piece, but I've got a little slit to put that in, and I did the same with this king. I cut down the side of the king's front and back and slid it through. So that's how I got that sitting there. I'm not sure about that myself. I'm going to leave it now, obviously, on this card, but I'm not too bothered. I've forgotten to do it on this one. So let's prepare this before we stick it on. So the key is we're going to do some gold embossing. So remember, the first thing to do when you're embossing is you must use one of the anti-static pads, just so that the embossing powder only sticks where you want it to stick. So I'm going to clean off that top corner where I'm going to put my star, and I'm going to clean off this bottom bit where I'm going to put my sentiment. So that has anti-staticked. Is that a word? Anti-staticked? I have no idea. Right, so I am going to use the star again. Stick that on a... And I shall probably use the same one as well. What shall I use? Good Tidings of Great Joy. I quite like that one for Christmas. So we'll use that one again. So then we want to use Versamark, of course. So I'm going to stamp the star first. So make sure it's nice and well inked, so you can tell because it shines in the light. And that's going to go up in this top corner here. So just stamp that. And then I'm going to stamp the sentiment. Yeah. Just at the bottom here, and hopefully get it about straight. That's good. Straightish. So then I get my embossing powder. Now when you get embossing powder, it comes in a little tiny jar, and you can use it from a jar if you sprinkle it all over paper, and then you can use the paper to tip it back into the jar. But I much prefer to put my embossing powder into an old ice cream tub, or this is a takeaway container, because I can then knock it straight back into the container, which is easy. So I'm just going to tip. I can use the spoon to tip it on, which is good. So it doesn't look anything much yet because, of course, it's not heated, but that is the embossing powder on. So I will carefully put that away before I knock it everywhere. And then, excuse the noise for a minute while I just move over here. So all I'm doing is just heating the embossing powder, and it changes into its glorious gold. And there we have it. So hopefully you can see that again. It's, again, the light in here. I really should have turned the light on, the window light. It's late in the afternoon as I'm recording this, and it's actually a little bit dull. Never mind. But you can see it there. It's a nice bright. So I want this to sit up, so I'm going to use dimensionals on the back of it. So I've got my dimensionals over here. You can use strips. I've just used the last of my strips on the other piece, so I haven't got any strips left. But if you've got the adhesive strips, they're very good for this because you can just put them all the way around. So here I've just got to be careful that my dimensionals aren't going to show. They might that side. I have to use little ones on that side. Obviously I haven't cut it quite even. That's okay. Oop. So, can't pick the bit up. I've got some small ones here, so I use the small ones down this side. Put 2 on, I think. Love these little mini dimensionals because they really do help. So that's my dimensionals. Just peel off the backings. Try and get the bits into the bin instead of all over the floor where I then have to pick them up again. Do you find, I don't know, does anybody else find that you go to the loo sometimes and they fall off your trousers and shirt onto the floor? I seem to have a bathroom covered in little bits of dimensional packets. But anyway, then I'm going to line this up with the top here and let it just fall down so it falls into place nice and evenly. Make sure it's lined up. Then I can just press those dimensionals down, and there we have it. So all I've got to do now is stick my king on top. And there we have it. So what I will say is you can use just about any stamp set to do this. If you've got any frame type die, cutting out an aperture and then having your picture inside and just making it fun by lifting a bit of the picture. So if you've got a little group of flowers, for example, you could lift perhaps one of the flowers up. That would be good. And just use dimensionals to lift it up. So here we go. Just got those few on my king now, so I can put him in the middle, just sitting at the bottom there, and there we have it. I actually think that even looks slightly better without the background. The other thing you could do if you wanted to put the background, as I have in this one, this I fiddled around cutting out little slots for it, but what you could do is just simply die cut out all 3 kings, because there's dies for all 3 kings with this set, and then stick each one on individually, and then you could just stick that anywhere you wanted in the background. Up to you how you do it, but I hope you like the layout. And here's yet another of my cards and the envelopes as well, although I haven't coloured the gifts yet on the envelopes. So I hope you enjoyed those cards, and I hope to see you again next week. Bye for now.